Now, I always say, you learn to do a procedure, whether it's surgery or some other procedure in veterinary medicine, when you can get in trouble and escape that trouble by yourself without help, then you know what you're doing. You're ready to go.
For sure. So you just kind of have to take the ego out of it, just per se. Yeah. So I'm here today with a nationally recognized veterinarian, Dr. Thomas Sessa. And today we're going to be doing three things. First, we're going to be talking about what it is to be a veterinarian. Secondly, the path that you took to get to where you are. And third, just some advice for young adults who may be interested in pursuing a career as a veterinarian. So first and foremost, can you tell me about your job?
Hi, well, my name is Dr. Thomas Sessa, and I'm a veterinarian in South Florida for 31 years. I went to school at the University of Florida. I graduated in 1989. I then did a small animal internship at Hollywood Animal Hospital in Florida, and then did a residency to become board certified in animal practice 4 years later. And that's how I got started, and then I'm practicing in South Florida for 31 years.
31 years, wow. So what is a typical day like as a veterinarian?
Well, it very much varies depending on what your skill level is. You know, new veterinarians or veterinarians that have just graduated school are doing more of the basic, and taking care of animals, getting vaccinations, learning to improve their skill set, maybe learning surgery with their mentors, going over cases with mentors or people more experienced. Sometimes we call that rounds every morning in a hospital setting. Basically, all the people will get together. We'll put all the cases on the table, and we'll go through them all together. And as a group, we'll try to decide what the best therapy, the best way to proceed to give the animal the best chance of doing well. And we do that in a group format, so everybody can get together, we can exchange information, and in that way, we get the best possible outcome.
That's great. So pretty much a typical day is not the same every day. It will vary.
Every day is different, especially once you get to a certain level where you're doing surgeries and medicine and other things.
So what do you like most about the job?
Well, by far, as myself, I wanted to be a veterinarian since I'm 5 years old. I had my first veterinary hospital at 7 years old, and basically all I treated was frogs, bugs, whatever I could as a child. So I always had that desire. I maintained that through my high school and years, and that was my goal of life. I loved animals. I still do, and I couldn't wait to make my way through school, do well, and try to have a career in veterinary medicine. And thank goodness I was able to accomplish that.
So I know you said since 5 years old you wanted to be a veterinarian, but what exactly inspired you to pursue a career as a veterinarian?
Well, no one else in my family. In my family, we're all lawyers and educators. I just had an affinity for animals since I'm born. My mother, we had 5 dogs, 4 cats growing up in our house, and all kinds of animals. And just helping animals gave me satisfaction, and I just felt like this would be an amazing career for me because I'm working and I'm enjoying it and liking what I'm doing. So when you love your work, it's not even going to work. It's going to enjoy another day and make a difference in the world and make it a better place and enhance yourself as well.
So what skills and qualities are essential for success in your field?
Well, as far as becoming a veterinarian, is that what we're speaking about?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think you have to have a focus because there's a couple things. It's a very competitive field. They don't accept everyone in veterinary school. I think it's somewhere around 1 in 4 that apply that are qualified to apply.
Isn't the schooling like a really long process as well?
Same as the medical school.
Okay.
So basically you go to undergraduate and then you apply to veterinary school. If you're accepted to veterinary school, it's a 4-year course. After 4 years, you'll take all your exams and you'll become a doctor of veterinary medicine. At that point, you can go into practice if you like. Most people these days don't do that. They go for supplemental teaching. Basically, they do an internship. That's where you go to a bigger practice. You work with experienced veterinarians. You have people helping you learn and work. And this way you can you can be very quickly hone your skills without the risk of making big mistakes.
And sorry to interrupt, but is that part of the schooling process or is it something different?
It's part of the educational process if you decide after you finish your 4 years that you want to advance your degree.
I see,
It's no
okay.
different than a human doctor that they finish a school, then they can become a general practitioner, but if they want to, say, become a neurosurgeon, you have to go back for another 7 years.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in veterinary medicine. If you want to do the basic, you can do a great job, have a fulfilling career, and it can be fine after the 4 years once you get your degree. But if you want to do some level of specialty, then you're going to have some extra schooling and training.
So from what I understand, you have your base 4 years of veterinarian school, and then if you want to specialize in something else, you would have to go and specialize in that.
In 4 years, additional education. The good thing is that after your 4 years, once you're a vet, when you're doing this other educational process, because you're earning your vet, you can get some kind of payment for it. You're not going to make a lot of money, but you can make enough to survive. And it's synonymous with interns and residents in the medical field. You're not making the big dollars, but you're making enough money to survive, and you're learning a skill that's going to be help you.
For sure, yeah. So what would you say the biggest challenge of the job, just generally speaking, is?
What is the biggest challenge? There's a couple of challenges. One challenge is learning your skill set. You're only as good as your skill set. So I'll give you an example. When I learned to do a surgery, say I'm doing a complex surgery, the first couple of times I do it, it's very nerve-wracking because I want to do it perfectly. But once you do something, repetition is a great teacher. So once you do something 20 times, the 25th time I do the surgery, it's so easy for me. But in the beginning, when I'm in the learning curve,
It's nerve-wracking, of course.
because you have a life in your hand, you don't want to make a mistake. That's why what I was learning, when I learned new procedures, I always did them with a skilled expert many times. And when they felt that my level was to a level which I could do it myself, I would do it myself with them watching me several times to make sure that I wasn't making any mistakes. Because basically, you want to put yourself in a position where if something does go wrong, you have the ability for someone to bail you out. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're over your head. You're trying some surgery where you're not really, you don't have the skill set, and you haven't done it enough times, and you might get in trouble. So I always made sure as I was learning that there was someone there to make sure that I would accomplish it in an effective manner. And I always say, you learn to do a procedure, whether it's surgery or some other procedure in veterinary medicine, when you can get in trouble and escape that trouble by yourself without help, then you know what you're doing. You're ready to go.
For sure. So you just kind of have to take the ego out of it, just
100%.
per se. Yeah. So I know you were talking about that challenge, but can you share like a specific challenge that you have faced in your career that was just comes to your mind right away?
Okay, sure. Basically, for me, as a person that most of my work was in doing surgery, I mean, the challenge with me is to pick a very complex surgery and take the time to learn it, and then be able to execute it and be and get a good outcome. So it's just the challenge of the next step in learning, the next thing that you have to do that's really cool, that you can make a difference and help an animal and actually change a life.
So I know you're talking about these complex surgeries. Are these complex surgeries something that you're performing on a daily basis, or like it's a rare
On
occasion?
a daily basis after many years. You remember, I'm no different than anywhere else. When I first started after 4 years, my knowledge was not great, but I knew I had a lot of book knowledge. And slowly over years, you learn your skill. To be a good surgeon, you're looking at many years, 6, 7 years of practice and practicing daily. But as you become good at your career and people recognize your skill, people will come to you. And at some point in my career, I was busy every day with the complex surgery because people knew that they could get a good result. They had some talent. I knew what I was doing, and they sought me out. Rather than at the beginning, I was happy if someone let me do anything.
Mm-hmm. So have there been any changes in the industry over the years?
Been a lot of changes in the industry. One change is this. When I was a veterinarian 30 years ago, most veterinary practices were privately owned. So you owned the hospital, you had your technicians, your receptionists, and you had your own little empire together, your business that you work through. In the last 15 years, the veterinary medicine has been more dominated by corporate. Corporate found that there was profit in veterinary medicine, so they started buying out all the hospitals. So now, instead of 80% of the hospitals being privately owned, 80% of the hospitals are corporate. And when you're working for corporate, it's different than when you're working private. Corporate has strict rules, but there are benefits to corporate. The benefits are you can work 3 days a week, 4 days a week. You may not have to do emergency time. When you have your own hospital, you're in charge of everything. If your patient calls at 3 in the morning, you have to go in to take care of it because it's your patient and it's your hospital. When you're in the corporate situation, it's a much larger group of people. There's people to back you up. So I would say that as far as time, you can definitely have a career where you could work a couple of days. You can be a woman and have a whole family and work 3 days a week. When you own your own practice, it's much more difficult because you have to be there all the time.
So you had your own privately owned hospital?
We had a privately owned hospital, but our hospital was one of the largest in South Florida. We had 27 doctors and approximately 120 ancillary staff that work with us between assistants, technicians, helpers, and so we over time we grew into a larger hospital. So that was something that we did, which was a great accomplishment.
So with the industry becoming more corporate, do you know some of the long-term impacts and the short-term impacts of a more corporate industry?
I would say that one thing is that because it's corporate, with all the perks of being able to have a free time, get a reasonable salary, as far as making a bigger living with more money coming in, if you own a practice, you will get money from the cases that you perform, plus you'll get money from your business. The other doctors that work for you, the ancillary staff that sells things, all those things will be part of the profit. But when you work corporate,
it's not like
you just get a salary. So what I'm trying to say is corporate's wonderful, it's okay, but remember, there is a limitation to how far you can go. As far as owning, you can't own, so you'll be working for somebody. So in the end of your career, you will not be able to sell a practice because you don't own it. So the monies that you make and the monies that you put away so you can have a good life for retirement, that has to be from the monies that you generate working. There's not any end game where you sell your practice and get a big chunk of money to help you.
It's more salary based.
Right, it'd be more salary based.
Okay.
One thing let me say is that when I became a veterinarian, it was 92% male and 8% women.
Wow.
Now, in 2024, it's 87% women and 13% men. So the whole dynamic has changed. Most veterinarians that come out of school today are females.
And why do you think that is, though?
I don't know. I mean, I think the perception many years ago was that human doctors made more money and maybe the guys wanted to have a better income. I don't know. Or some people feel that the women are so much more compassionate for animals. It's just over time kind of morphed that way. Let me also say that if you want to become a veterinarian, it makes sense to start early. It's a very competitive process. So you need to have a couple of things. You need to do well in school. And I would tell the kids, if you do well in high school or pre-high school, it's going to make it easier for you when you morph into college in order to be able to study and do well on the offset, because now you're competing at a higher level with a higher school with many smart kids, and they all want to go to medical school, veterinary school, so it's not the same competition level. So you need to be sharp in order to get into that school. Now, especially since they only accept maybe 30% in that area of the people.
Yeah, so while we're talking about like the education process, what would you say that the best path for someone to take if they're interested in a career like yours?
First of all, I would say academically, you need to be superior. You need to focus on school, focus on the sciences. You can get a counselor that's going to guide you to what courses that you need to take to put you in the best position to be admitted to the veterinary college. That makes very good sense. Also, I would say is that the perception of being a doctor, whether it's a human, veterinarian, dentist, and the reality is quite different many times. Some people have a picture of this grandiose thing of being this great veterinary doctor, but they don't know what the ins and outs is. They don't know about the euthanasias, the animals you have to put to sleep, the failures, all the hard work that you have to put in. So my recommendation is, the second you're old enough and when you can qualify, get yourself into a good veterinary practice. Volunteer, even if you begin cleaning kennels like I did. I started cleaning kennels. Well, I did a good job doing that. Then they moved me up to hold the animals. Eventually, I became a technician. And I saw firsthand what it meant to be a veterinarian. I saw firsthand the happiness when you accomplish something amazing, and the sadness when a routine thing goes bad and you lose a patient and you're heartbroken. So I think you need to get a real idea of what's going on, because some people who've never been in a veterinary hospital and decided they want to be a veterinarian, they may go to a school, and then after they go into the hospital, determine, oh my God, this is not for me. So try to get a one base before you go there, and also to get admitted to veterinary school, your chances are greatly improved if you have good experience. They want to see that you really want to do this.
So what is the average yearly earning potential of a veterinarian?
I believe the average starting salary is somewhere in the $80,000 range. And I think the average veterinarian that's working for corporate, that's doing well, over a few years can make it $150,000.
Wow.
Even up to the $200,000 if you have a specialty.
That's cool. So now I want to back you all the way up to high school. Can you talk a little bit about the road you took to get to where you are?
Sure. I mean, I always had a great love for animals. So when I was in high school, after the school every day, I went off to the veterinary hospital and I started working. And to get an idea, I basically put myself into the trenches. And like I wish I repeat, I started off in the beginning cleaning cages, keeping the facility nice. I was doing errands, and I worked myself all the way up to being the technician and applying some of the medical techniques as a technician after learning. So it's a slow process. You just don't walk in and take care of animals. You start from the bottom, and you work yourself up, your skill level, till you get to a point where you can do things in a safe and an effective manner.
So I know you said you went to the University of Florida. Did you also go to veterinary school in the University of Florida or somewhere else?
I went to undergraduate at University of Florida, and I did you can do any of the science degrees. Mine was zoology. You could do biology. As long as you've accomplished the required courses to become a veterinarian, that's things like organic chemistry, physics, calculus, all the sciences, then any of those degrees will help you to get into veterinary school. But with the competitive landscape, you need to have good grades, you need to have good experience, and then before you go to veterinary school, you do interviews, a series of interviews to see. You have to be able to present yourself well. You have to be able to present your vision well. You have to convince the admission board that you would be a positive force in the world of veterinary medicine.
Definitely.
And when you're done, you would enhance the whole field.
And do you know if a lot of these schools are offering veterinary school, or is it something, it's only a few schools?
Veterinary school in the state of Florida. There's another one in Alabama. I don't know the exact number. It's in 30-something veterinary schools in the country. Well, there's in the hundreds of medical schools, so you can see that there's a lack of schools. And that's why now there's a backlog. There's a need for veterinarians right now. Because the need is greater than what we have.
So do you know what the top veterinary school is right now?
One of the best veterinary schools is UC Davis, University of Florida. They're all the top 10. They're all approved by a board that approves the veterinary schools. There are other veterinary schools in other countries, but they're not approved in this country. In order to practice veterinary medicine, if you graduated from those not approved schools, you have to take a battery of tests and exams to qualify to be a veterinarian in the United States.
So let's say I went to veterinary school in the U.S. Does that mean I can go practice in other countries?
Every country has their own rules. Some countries, a veterinary group in the United States will allow you to practice. For example, you couldn't go to England and practice. You have to get a special dispensation to work for a certain amount of time. So pretty much it's only in the United States.
What advice would you have for young adults who want to pursue a career as a veterinarian?
First thing I would say is have an innate love for animals. Before you make this decision, take the time and immerse yourself in the veterinary world. Go to the practices in your neighborhood. talk to the owner or the veterinarian that's in charge, the manager. Tell them your goals in life, that you want to be a veterinarian, that you're motivated, that possibly you could volunteer at first, and that your hope would be that if you did a good job, that maybe in the summer that you could ever get employment and you could actually work in the veterinary hospital. And each year, winding up to your senior year, you can improve your skill set, and then you'll be more apt to know if this is what you really want, and just as important, you'll be more qualified, because when you on your resume, you can see that you've been in the veterinary hospital, you have worked, and there are people that are doing the evaluation will say, hey, this guy really knows what he wants to do, rather than a person that is very smart academically, has all of the whistles of academia, but then they ask you what your experience level is, and you say, well, not really, I bring my dog to the vet. That would be a negative in the ability to be selected.
Experience is really key in this field, for sure.
Of course. And the fact that a lot of people don't realize when it is to be a veterinarian until they're actually in it. And I always say, don't go into any profession for the money. Become a really good doctor and become very good at what you do. And that you could be a veterinarian, a surgeon, a dentist, a lawyer. Once you get good at what you do, the money will follow. Rather than focus on money, focus on your abilities, and then the money will follow because of your skill.
Well, I think that's going to be it, and I want to thank you so much for volunteering your time in support of CareerRoad and getting free career advice nationwide for young adults.
My pleasure, and it's a pleasure to speak with you and to encourage young people to make a difference in this world and become veterinarians and actually help people. It's a service profession. You're making a difference every day. It's hard to, what I would say is that when you save an animal, I'll give you an example. I have an 80-year-old person that lives in a condo. Their whole life is their doggy. When they lose that dog, it's a tragedy for them. If you can bring that dog back to life, let them live a few more years, make them happy. You not only save the animal, but you save the person. So you can make a difference in the animals' lives, and you make a big difference in people's lives.
Definitely. That's really important, yeah.
Yes, it was.
Well, thank you again.
Being with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.